Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the FF Champs After Dark podcast, a proud member of the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. And in case you were sleeping and didn't know it, Full-Time Fantasy has now become the fantasy football end of Sports Illustrated. That's right, folks. Full-Time Fantasy will now be driving all of fantasy content for Sports Illustrated. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Definitely looking forward to that. We got a lot to talk about tonight. We actually have a new co-host that we're going to introduce. But let me bring in the first co-host, the guy that cracked open a beer to start the show. You got to love that on a Friday night. Andy Singleton. Andy, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, Jim. I'm happy to be back. I know I missed last week. Some changing of the guard. We have football back, so there's a lot to talk about. We got a bunch of players that we were throwing at each other, all three of us that we wanted to discuss tonight. You mentioned me opening a beer. I just got off a 24-hour tour, so I'm home. I'm excited. I'm pumped up about this Sports Illustrated news, so it's cause for celebration.
And I agree, absolutely. And, of course, our new co-host, Mr. Dwain McFarland. Dwain, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great. I think you guys are just lucky to have someone on from down south. You know, you got you northern guys.
I love one of my favorite trips every year is going to Mobile for the Senior Bowl, and I just can't get enough of the SEC and the ACC, and it's mostly because of the accents.
Well, hey, maybe I can help you with that on like a once a week basis, Andy.
Sounds good. I'm all for it.
So, Dwain, since you're new to the show, why don't you tell everybody something about yourself, what you do, where you do it, how you do it, and who you do it to?
Oh, wow. Okay, Jim, that sounds personal, but I mean, I'll jump into that. No, you guys, you can find me at footballguys.com, and then I also write for Matt Waldman RSP, so mattwaldmanrsp.com. I also do some work for Fighting Chance Fantasy. That's how I met you, Taz, last year. I work with I have a fabulous co-host where we do a podcast every Tuesday night called the Fantasy Football Hustle with Brian Drake. So I'm went from doing no podcasts and no writing a year ago to now writing for two sites and doing two different podcasts. Well, actually three, because I do a lot of podcasts with Matt Waldman as well. But I'm super excited to be on with you guys. I'm super excited, just like Andy, about the SI news. And man, anytime I can talk football, Jim, you know me. When we talk on the phone, it's usually at least 30 minutes, and we'll say, hey, we're gonna just have a quick chat, and we talk for 30 minutes to an hour, like almost every time.
Sorry, Jim. This is absolutely insane. You said a year ago you weren't writing, and now you're writing for not one, not two, but two of the bigger publications in the entire industry, and you just casually dropping names like Matt Waldman, who's my big brother, adopted big brother. I love Matt, one of my better friends in this space. But it took me several years to get to the level you've gotten to in a year. So not only do you have those two things going, but you get to join Taz and I now as the third wheel in this cog. And I mean, already we've got you into Sports Illustrated. So you might be trending faster than even Dallas Goedert at this rate.
That would be really good. Dallas Goedert and James Washington both have to be trending right now.
Yeah, really. And I will tell you this, folks, if you are not familiar with Dwain, pay attention, because you're going to be learning something each and every time he talks, because I do. And that's something I don't normally say about a lot of analysts. So we're going to have some fun with this. We got a lot of people to talk about. So let's just jump right into it. And, of course, the first part has to be Antonio Brown. Not only does he have the bad feet from the cryogenic chamber, now he doesn't want to play without his helmet. Dwain, give us your thoughts on Antonio Brown at this point.
This is a deal where, whether it be, Antonio Brown or Damian Williams or, it seems like all the guys that I really wasn't targeting anyway are getting this bad news, and now they're moving down the board, and all the guys I liked are getting pushed up. So for me, with Antonio Brown, I always considered him an end of the second, and I didn't even take him there. I only own him. I've got 30 teams so far. I own him one time, and I got him in the middle of the third. That was last week. He's just not a guy that I've been targeting anyway, just because I don't think that Derek Carr can tap into the true potential that Antonio Brown has. And now we've got the issue of, first it was the foot. There's been issues going on there. He hasn't been able to practice with Derek Carr. And then now you add on top of that, what's going on with the helmet. I mean, there's part of me, I'm not a psychologist or anything. I don't know what you guys know about, behavior science and those sort of things, but AB's got something going on. There's something wrong. I don't know if it's that he doesn't want to play for the Raiders or if he's just literally lost it. But at this point, I would not touch Antonio Brown even in the third round. And it's not just because of him. It's because there's too many other viable options that I had graded right there with him anyway. I think he's literally end of the third, early fourth round pick if you want to take him.
Yeah, I got a lot on here. You mentioned the sports psychology. That's something I always look into. I played Division I basketball back in my day. I feel like I've gotten a more of an intimate sense of reading athletes' body language and you just the practice habits and things of that nature. So that's definitely something I'm always paying attention to when I'm looking at athletes of any sport. This whole Antonio Brown thing is really I think he's having fun with us. I think he's always been a guy that's enjoyed having a relationship with the fans, whether it be from Madden or, being on Twitter or sharing, his Instagram stories, whatever it is. He's always been a very kind of approachable, accessible kind of star athlete. So I think he's having a lot of fun seeing how his name's being reported and all this kind of stuff. Watching Hard Knocks, I was more concerned about how he treated his family and how he was a father to his boys. And I don't know the ins and outs besides what you see on camera, but he looks like he's in love with his kids and his kids love him and respect him. And that to me is more the sign of a good man than any of the stuff that he does with the cryogenics, which he's doing to try to make himself better, with the hot air balloon, all this kind of you have one shot at this. You've earned the right to be in this position. You better embrace it. You better take it for what it's worth. That's one part of it. The other part of it is, do you guys know who Craig McTavish is? You guys might not, but Craig McTavish is known because he is the last player in the NHL to be allowed to play without a helmet. Who gives a crap if he wants to play with his old helmet or not? Have him sign a waiver. Say, we're trying to make your safety better. You want to be an asshole and go and play in this helmet? Sign the waiver. If something happens to you, our hands are clean of it.
Wait. I'm going to stop you right there because it's not as simple as that. The problem is the insurance companies.
Okay. And if there is more to it that I don't know about, I'm trying to simplify it, but maybe there is. Maybe it just seems like it's such a ridiculous point to me. He's not practicing because of his feet right now, so there's room to play around with this helmet thing. Well, I think he's having fun.
They are talking to the league, and they're trying to get the league to give him an exemption. So they are in that process. Mike Silva covers the sports all over the place, had a really good read on this and, how this is getting down. And he's saying, Antonio Brown is saying, look, every other helmet I've tried has cut down my vision angle. I can't see as well as the helmet I'm used to. And this is the one that, gives me the clearer vision. I can see the field better. This is the one I want to wear. And I'm with you. At some point, they got to figure out a way to accommodate him because it's his choice. It should be his choice. They shouldn't be allowed to make that choice for him if he's willing to take that risk. And, I think at some point you got to let him try.
Well, you just mentioned something that to me is really fascinating, that this is a guy, we've seen his work ethic. We've seen his workout habits. We've seen what he is capable of doing on a football field. And he's saying, I appreciate you giving me all these options for one of your new helmets and your new protocol, but they don't work for me. I'm the best at my position. I'm the best at what I do. And I'm telling you, even if it's we talk about baseball hitters all the time. And I know you hate when I bring up baseball, but you're talking about the simplest minutia of milliseconds. So if you're telling me that the top wide receiver in the league is saying, even if it's a millimeter of a difference, it's changed his feel for the game, I'm buying that. And he should get what he needs to feel comfortable to earn that check.
Thoughts, Dwain, real quick, because we've already spent way more time on this than I wanted to. We got a lot of names to talk about, but any last thoughts?
No, I think those are all good points. And, I don't really disagree with any of them. I don't know anything about Antonio Brown, the man. My main focus is for folks listening to this that want to know about fantasy. And I think where the rubber meets the road, I'll just ask you guys, where if you're thinking receiver, where's the stopping point where you're like, okay, now I'm taking Antonio Brown? I mean, are you going to take him over Keenan Allen? You're going to take him over Adam Thielen? You're going to take him over Stephon Diggs? You might be getting to the point where I may say yes.
That's where. But until then, where I'm saying yes too. I agree.
I am, and you said Stephon Diggs you're good with, but Adam Thielen you're not. To me, those are basically carbon copies of each other. I know they're different styles and everything, but in the same offense, putting up similar numbers. I don't understand how you could easily say yes to Stephon Diggs and no to Adam Thielen. I'm still taking Antonio Brown right outside wide receiver 5 range.
Really? Wow, that's a little too early for me. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
And it's not so much. Wait, it's not so much Antonio Brown. It's Carr. Carr couldn't, throw the ball enough to get Cooper that involved because he wouldn't trust Cooper to go get the ball. Well, I can't see him doing that with Brown.
There's a whole lot of other directions and tangents we can go on if you want to mention Carr.
No, we don't, Joe. So let's keep going. Yeah. We talked about Brown. Let's talk about the Green Bay wide receivers. I mean, we all know Davante Adams, 1 or 2 off the board in most drafts, but 2 and 3 seem to be garnering all the attention these days. Marquez Valdes-Scantling and, of course, Geronimo Allison. And I know which way I like in this matchup, but I'm going to go to you first, Andy. What's your thoughts here on these 2 guys? Which one do you like first? Would you not draft one of them if you had the other? You know what I mean? Give us a breakdown on these 2 for you.
Yeah, I'm waiting for them to fall to me late. The only one I would really, prioritize, and you're going to have to prioritize them high, is, of course, Davante Adams. It just, to me, doesn't feel like a solidified situation yet where I'm willing to say I know it's going to be one of these 2 guys. It could be either, and there are other options in that system as well. I look at the tight end position. This is something they've tried to address for years. They finally thought they might have had it with Jimmy Graham, and he doesn't seem to necessarily be the answer, but he hasn't been awful either. You bring in Jay Sternberger, the rookie, who I was very high on coming out of college. This kid has played in 3 different systems over the last 3 years and been productive. This is a more than capable guy to step in from day one and be a participant in this league. So there's a lot of different receiving options. I also maintain that Dexter Williams is a guy that I think could be the linchpin to this, because if Dexter Williams can take those early down touches away from Aaron Jones, who everybody is in love with, and push Aaron Jones into more of that receiving type of complementary back, now you're going to have some targets going to him out of the backfield as well. So I think outside of Adams, there's so many mouths that I think have uncertainty in this offense that unless they're falling to me late where you're just sitting there like, wow, Scantling's still there? Sure, I'll take a gamble. I'm not putting too much stock in prioritizing them.
How about you, Dwayne? What's your thoughts here?
I'm the opposite. First, I don't think that Aaron Jones is going to lose his job to Dexter Williams. I think there's absolutely actually no way. And Dexter Williams looked okay last night. I watched all of his snaps. He didn't even get to start, the game, despite Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams not being active. So that's not necessarily a good sign. He had a couple of okay runs. Didn't seem like he was very comfortable in the scheme yet. I do like him over Jamal Williams, and I would like to see him be the second back. But this will be Aaron Jones's job, unless he gets hurt again. Now, and in that case, it's a possibility, and I am handcuffing him with Dexter Williams. But back to the receivers, I'm leaning to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Now, when the offseason started, I was definitely leaning to Geronimo Allison. Geronimo Allison is he's the only receiver last year. Most people don't know this, but if you go look at, splits of the receivers that played with Davante Adams, he is the only player that actually kept Davante Adams from being like at 30% of the targets every week. Whenever he was in the game, he was actually usually seeing, 20, 22% of the targets. Once he was gone, Marquez Valdes-Scantling had a little short stretch, but it wasn't as good as what Allison had. So I was definitely, pumping up Allison, when it first started. But then once we started to learn more about LaFleur's system, and this is what I really wanted to specifically look at, a lot of things in preseason don't matter, but there are specific things that really do. And what we need to know about Green Bay is we've got a coach in LaFleur that comes from Sean McVay, but he also comes from Kyle Shanahan. So he's worked with both of these guys. They're 2 very different. They're the same running style offense, the same concepts, but the way they deploy personnel is very different. Kyle Shanahan's much more of a 12 personnel, 21 personnel. So folks that don't know, that's 2 tight ends or 2 running backs. Typically, it's a fullback in Shanahan's system. Last year, Matt LaFleur, when he went to Tennessee, he ran 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends, 30% of the time. He only ran 11, 56% of the time. Sean McVay runs 11, like 90%. That's why all 3 of those receivers can consistently have value every week, is because they're literally on the field every play. So what I'm seeing so far from LaFleur this year is it looks like he's going more back to the Shanahan-style route. So what we're probably going to see is 70 to 65% is going to be 11 personnel. And then you're going to see 12 and 21. So last night I did chart it, and just the first 2 drives, you had It was 21, 21, 12, 21, 21, 21, 21, 12, 21. And then there were six plays with 11. So over half of the plays came with either two tight ends or two running backs. Now, it's still early, but it's a trend, right? This is what we saw in Tennessee. This is what he was used to with Kyle Shanahan. Then he spent that year or 2 years, whatever it was, with McVay, where McVay ran, 11 all of the time. And then he went to Tennessee, and he really went back to those roots. And last year with Tennessee, that's pretty significant, Jim, because if you remember, they lost Delaney Walker in week 1, yet they were still using this 12 personnel all the time. So if that's the case and this holds, that's going to hurt Geronimo Allison, because Marquise Valdez-Scantling, everything from early in minicamp through even this last week of practice to even the game yesterday, he's on the field in 2 wide receiver sets. Now, Davante Adams didn't play yesterday, but everything says that he is the 2, and he will be on the field when they're in. They even said it that way. When there's 2 tight ends or 2 running backs, MVS is going to be on the field. And so in that case, that hurts Geronimo Allison, because he's only going to be on the field 70 to 65% of the plays in a game. And that's going to make it's going to make it game script dependent, or it will make it matchup dependent, which, in fantasy gets tricky.
Well, other than you making me realize and feel sorry again for how shallow the Titans offense is, you kind of spoke to everything that I was kind of mentioning. You mentioned the 2 running back sets, and if you believe that Dexter Williams could be that 2, then he is going to challenge Aaron Jones for touches if they're both on the field in that situation. That going back to Shanahan with Tevin Coleman and Devonta Freeman. That's one point. I mentioned Jay Sternberger. There's the double tight end set with Jimmy Graham. Now, my bigger question, though, is to both of you. If I told you at the end of the season, Davante Adams won't be the leader in receptions on this Green Bay team, you'd be surprised if I told you he was healthy. I think we're in unison there.
Yeah, just real quick. Hang on. Okay. So I'm not disagreeing with you on those things. Sorry, my bad. Where I was going was I didn't finish. This might disagree that MVS is my guy. I would prioritize over any of the others, and the reason why is just because he's going to be on the field. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, that's fine. That's the second point to my question for both of you. So MVS is starting out in the leader spot right now. But if I told you at the end of the season that the second leading receiver behind Davante Adams was any of Jake Kumaro, Jamal Moore, Equinemius St. Brown, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Geronimo Allison. That's 5 guys I just named that could easily. You wouldn't be shocked if they were the number 2 receiver.
Yes, I would.
This season.
Yeah, okay. I would be too.
Jamon Moore, absolutely not. Yeah. Equinemius, St. Brown. I'm just going to say that. If anything, he would definitely need injuries in front of him to get there. They just haven't shown enough in practice. The team isn't solidified that these guys are going to be guys moving forward. I wouldn't even be surprised if Jamon Moore doesn't make the team.
Kumaro is the guy that's flashing.
But he flashes every preseason.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to Andy, that would be the guy I would say yes. Yeah. And last night he was on the field as the 3, which means he's the 4 right now.
So even if you eliminate the second-year guys in Moore and St. Brown, you're still talking about Kumaro, Allison, and MVS for that second slot. So that's where I'm saying this is where it all started out when you asked me how do I feel about them. I'm not prioritizing them because I just don't feel comfortable that any of them have a stronghold on that number 2 position.
Look, I'm with Dwain in the fact that I think that Marquez Valdez-Scantling is going to play the 2. I do. But I also think that Allison is going to get enough work in the slot that he's going to put up good fantasy numbers. He was putting up great fantasy numbers last year, as Dwain said, to start the season before the injury happened. I don't see that changing. I know that Scantling will be on the outside. I know that Allison won't always be on the field. I get that. But when he is on the field, Rodgers really loved going to him. He had no problem going to him. And, again, it really comes down to I want a piece of guys that are on teams that have good offenses. I'd rather take a shot at Geronimo Allison or Scantling over, number 1s on some teams. It's just the way it is because at least you have a good offense around them. They should put up points. The offense should be able to move. So you're going to get more chances that way than on some of these other teams where a number 1 may not see the field as often just because the team doesn't see the field as often. So, it really comes down to a lot of different things. But when you got Aaron Rodgers throwing to you, I want to take a shot on getting a little piece of that. And right now, if Scantling goes off the board first, I don't have a problem coming back and grabbing Allison. If Allison goes off the board first, I'll be more than happy to get Scantling. But I don't mind getting a piece of that pie if I can get it.
All right, so to simplify it and give you one, I would take Allison over Valdez-Scantling.
Well, there you go. Well, I simplified it enough. So let's move on. Next piece of information, and this to me is a big piece of information, is that Houston went out and traded for Duke Johnson. They filled a role that they absolutely needed to fill after getting rid of D'Onta Foreman. And, I think this is a great acquisition for them. I think he fits their offense tremendously. But let's go over to Dwain and see what Dwain has to say.
Yeah, I think the key for Duke Johnson is if QT is healthy or not. If he's not, I think Duke Johnson can push for 15% target share in the backfield. I think as far as it goes with he and Lamar Miller, it will be probably more of a split than what folks truly think. I just redid my projections yesterday. I went in and did, I do an update like every other day. And as far as it goes with Duke Johnson, I'm looking, at Houston right now. I've got Lamar Miller right now, Jim, it's still at 50%, of the carries, which, he was right at that. He was a little over that last year. And I've got Duke Johnson at 30, percent because you've got Deshaun Watson, right? So he's going to take 15 to 20%, and you'll have a third guy get 5% or so. So I've got Duke Johnson at 140 carries, but I've got him at 600 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns rushing. And I've got him right now at 10% of the targets. And that's the key, though. If Kiki Kuti is not healthy, or if he cannot stay healthy, he's going to operate in that area of the field, that short, quick area, the underneath stuff where Kuti has been operating. And so that's where his upside sits. But even right now, I've got him sitting, Jim, at 175 points, which puts him, like a round behind like the Kenyon Drakes, the guys like that. I think his value actually just jumped up quite a bit in this particular situation, because we're also talking about Bill O'Brien, who comes from New England. He's got those New England roots. He's wanted to have a pass receiving back and a slot receiver forever. He thought he was just about to finally have two, and now one of them has gone down. So for me, this is good news for Duke Johnson. Lamar Miller probably stays about where I took Lamar Miller down a little bit, like I said, because I like Duke Johnson better than where we were sitting with Foreman just because of the Achilles thing. So I'm excited about Duke Johnson. I think right now we'll probably see him climb 3 or 4 rounds in ADP. I haven't drafted anything in the last 2 days, which is weird. I'm usually drafting like every day. But I think Duke Johnson probably ends up being worth an 11th or 12th round pick, maybe a 10th.
I think he goes earlier than that. Look, this is a guy that 2 years ago was a top 12 running back just because of what he can do in the passing game. I think he fits this offense. And I'm not worried about Kiki Kuti. Kuti hasn't shown he can stay healthy. He's already hurt up again. I'm really not worried about him. Duke Johnson is that guy that they can use all over the place like they were trying to do with Kiki, and he just couldn't stay on the field. I think Duke Johnson's in for a great year. I had luckily grabbed him in quite a few drafts earlier because you didn't have to pay a dime for him in those drafts before this news, just hoping that they would trade him to somebody, get him out of Cleveland. And I think this is like the perfect landing spot for him. I agree with you. I think it moves Miller down slightly, but Miller's still going to be the number one there. But I think Duke Johnson in this offense, I think Deshaun Watson is going to fall in love with his talent.
I didn't hear anything Dwain said, but I am 100% sure I probably would have disagreed with it. So I'll just go ahead and say I love the fact that you got 2 Miami running backs in the same backfield. I love this. We thought he was going to possibly go to Tampa Bay, and people were excited about Tampa Bay. I don't necessarily know that we saw Houston coming. To me, they kind of popped up out of nowhere. And then when the deal was announced, it was just like, wow, yeah, that makes total sense. I kind of don't understand it more from Cleveland's standpoint, and we'll get into that in a moment. But for Houston, this is a home run. This is a no-brainer. This was a fantastic deal for them. So for Duke Johnson, for Houston, just another piece to that puzzle, like you mentioned. This was an offense we were already excited about. So I love it. I love it. I'm definitely big into Duke. If you had him in Dynasty, you held on. Kudos to you. Jim, you mentioned you could get him for free just a couple days ago. So if you had him and you drafted early, good for you. His value is only going to get pushed up. I don't know what you guys are saying, but I'm going to say at least 2 to 3 rounds. It's not really a deep running back year outside of the top studs, which seem to occupy the whole first round. Then it seems to be a bunch of gambles. So he's that later kind of guy that you feel like, yeah, I could get this guy and he could finish like James White did last year. I don't think he necessarily is going to be a Damian Williams type where you feel like, oh, he could be a lead back. But I definitely think he's going to challenge Lamar Miller for carries, not just receptions in that offense.
We actually agreed. You should have heard it. Hey, he's jumped just real quick. I just looked while we were on here. So he's jumped around so far. I'm with you, Jim. I don't know where he'll land. He'll probably end up being in the 9th or 10th round. Right now he jumped up to almost in the 12th round so far just on this news.
Look, I'll be honest. I'll take him in the 8th round and feel good about it. I really would. I love this guy. I think he's got all the talent in the world. And I just, the usage in Cleveland just didn't make a lot of sense, or the non-usage, whatever. So let's move beyond that. We talked about how it affects Houston. Let's go back to Cleveland, as you were alluding to, Andy. What about this makes sense for them since they don't get Hunt back until week 10? And, I think what it really does is show that they really are thinking that Dontrell Hilliard is going to be the guy that can step in and take up whatever role they need him to as that second back, as that, change of pace back. Plus, I think it also solidifies the fact that Chubb will be more involved in the passing game. So I think it solidifies Chubb really firmly as that middle round 2, maybe even early round 2 running back. You still got the second half of the season you got to worry about. But Dontrell Hilliard may even have a little value out of this. I'm not saying go out and draft him right now, but don't be surprised if he carves out a little niche of his own. And Dwain, I'd like to get your thoughts on Dontrell Hilliard.
This says that they're comfortable with Dontrell Hilliard. He played last night. He caught 2 not really check downs. He also works down the field past the line of scrimmage, just like Duke Johnson. So he is more like, he's the receiving type of back. Duke's elite at it, but Dontrell Hilliard has shown that he's good. Kareem Hunt obviously is also good at this. So I think they do believe that Dontrell Hilliard can fill in. I think the other thing, that it does is it does slightly bump Nick Chubb's, upside for these first 10 games as far as, what he could get from a target share standpoint. I bumped Chubb up from 7% to 9% in my projections. So, that does nothing but help him. He's shown that he's an elite runner. He wasn't really ever much of a receiver at Georgia. It's not something they asked him to do. That was more of Sony Michel's role at the time. But as we've seen with many backs before, just because it's something they didn't do in college doesn't mean they can't do it. It's just the role that they were given. So I think Chubb will get a little bit more work out of the backfield as a receiver as well, which I think, Jim, solidifies him at this point. It's tough to let him go, past, the mid to late second in any kind of format, whether it's standard PPR, half point PPR.
People
Chubb
still
is going to
play
be very...
standard.
Yeah, I know some people that do, but I don't know.
Standard, bah, give me a break. That's the most boring kind of fantasy football there is, folks. Get away from it. Get away from it.
You need more points.
Yeah, and it's not even about more points. It's about making more players viable options.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's just touchdowns. Guy can run for 80 yards and not score, and he gets 8 points. Well, thank you for that. I hate standard. I've hated it for years.
To clarify, when I say standard, I think of people that are playing yardage without PPR. I don't even think of the old school, just straight touchdown. You're right. I don't know if anybody's still doing that. That's insane.
Well, even yardage and touchdown is still, I can't stand it.
I'm with you. I'm a PPR guy.
So let's keep moving. We got a long list that we're not going to get to. Andy's got something else to say. Go on, Andy.
I didn't get to say anything.
Well,
I thought we
you
lost
got your chance now. Go.
No, I didn't get to say anything about Hilliard.
Keep going.
I don't get this move at all. All it does for me is bump up Nick Chubb even more. You guys are talking about standard versus PPR. To me, that Nick Chubb is the kind of player that negates that, especially what his role figures to be in this offense. Now, he can only catch 20 balls, but he's going to score more touchdowns than other people. So he's going to negate the what you might lose in a PPR league for whatever lack of receptions you believe there might be from him. Dontrell Hilliard, I don't get it. I really don't. Even Freddie Beans Don't Burn in the Kitchens said this guy still has a lot to learn. Like, there's a role for him. Sure, we believe in him long term, but he didn't seem too confident that this was his guy for right now to start the season while Kareem Hunt is suspended and sitting on the sidelines. So
that's why we're both saying it solidifies Chubb.
Oh,
it really pushes
100%.
Chubb up. Yeah, 100%. No, and that's why I said you're not going to go out and draft Hilliard right now. Just keep your eye on him. He could surprise. I'm not saying that, but for the little role that they want him to play, I think he'll be fine. They're not going to ask him to take a big role. That's what they got Chubb for. That's why they got rid of what's his name last year, and said screw it, this is the guy we want to go with. So
I'll tell you what though, we've had this debate on episodes in the past about Kareem Hunt and how do you value him. I think this actually helps Hunt's value as well because he becomes the bar none number one handcuff in the entire NFL right now, barring any type of injury or any unforeseen circumstances happening for Nick Chubb. So even though you have to wait a few weeks to get there, he's
I totally
undoubtedly
disagree with that.
Okay.
You say it's undoubtable. I say it's definitely doubtable.
Well, who would be the number one handcuff then?
I'll tell you what. If I draft Dalvin Cook, I sure as hell want Alexander Madison.
Who's done nothing in the league.
I don't care. He's a rookie. So what?
Okay. Kareem Hunt has shown you what he can do in the league.
I know what Kareem Hunt can do, and I know what he can do, but he's not going to do it till week 10.
I said you're gonna have to wait to get there, but when he comes back,
we did an FNTSY draft today. An in-studio, in staff draft. And one of the guys took Kareem Hunt in the middle of the 7th round. I couldn't laugh at him enough.
That's ridiculous.
So folks, I get what Andy's saying, but take it with a grain of salt. You're not drafting Kareem Hunt anywhere near that kind of earliness in any draft from week 10 on. It just doesn't make any sense.
No. But where I was not drafting Kareem Hunt anywhere before this, I would take him if he's slipping and I can get him at a discount later on now. I'd roster him at this point where I wasn't looking to roster him before.
I'm still not looking to roster him. It's just not. I don't like guys that play from week 10 on. So let's keep going. Here's another big one that's in the news a lot now. And, of course, that's rookie running back sensation, soon to be a Hall of Famer, probably first ballot Hall of Famer, depending on who you listen to these days. But that is, of course, Philadelphia running back Miles Sanders. And I have no idea who I went to first last time. Who did I go to first last time?
It's Andy's turn, man.
Andy, there we go. Give us your thoughts on Miles Sanders and this Philadelphia backfield.
Well, first and foremost, I have honestly got to catch up with from Thursday night's game. So I have no idea if or what he did in the Eagles game. I'm taking a look now as I'm talking to you. 3 carries, 3 yards. Sounds a lot like Ronald Jones to me, which is who I comp Miles Sanders to initially before I started getting into my scouting. And then I fell in love with Miles Sanders, and I said he might be my favorite running back in this entire class. And then I was kind of off him again. So I've been all over with Miles Sanders. I still like him, but I still think the more that he trends up, the more valuable Jordan Howard is, because I know they didn't pay much to get him, but they got him for a reason, and he definitely fits more of what they're looking to do. I think Jordan Howard is better than Josh Adams, and Josh Adams has an opportunity in this team because he's the type of bruising running back they're looking for, and Jordan Howard fits that mold for them. So Miles Sanders has a role, but not where people are starting to think they need to draft him. And I think his value is a lot of helium and overinflation.
Yeah, I'm actually similar, on this. I do like Miles Sanders' talent. I do think, there's some things that the things he has that he needs to correct are correctable. It looks like for the most part, like ball security, pass pro, that kind of stuff. He overjumps the hole a lot and does a lot of things, but those things paid off in college. Hopefully he'll learn those things, in the NFL. My biggest concern, and I went ahead and charted this just because his ADP is starting to really fly up. And again, this is just first season of the first week of the preseason, but they did use Howard and Sanders. And so here's how it broke down for you two guys. So 1st and 10, first drive, Howard. 2nd and 5 was Howard. And this is who's on the field. 3rd and 5, it was Sanders. They split him out wide. They put him in motion back into the backfield. Next drive, 1st and 10, Sanders. 2nd and 7, Sanders. 1st and 10, Sanders. 2nd and 9, Sanders. 3rd and 10, Howard. Sanders missed a block on the 2nd and 9. Jordan Howard was out there on a key down where they're probably going to blitz, at least in regular games, maybe not in the preseason. Then the 3rd drive was all Howard. So for me, the other thing is if I can't remember the name of the podcast, but it's the one that Adam Kaplan and Mosher do. And so it's like Inside the Eagles or whatever. I listened to them last week, and just because I wanted to hear more about what the insiders at camp were saying. And they did mention that it's probably going to be this rotation, and they don't necessarily know when it's going to be over. They think Sanders is definitely the most talented back, and he's showing that, in practice. But They also talked about Darren Sproles and his role, and they do believe he's going to be the 2-minute offense guy. He's going to be the guy getting the receiving. So for me with Sanders, before Sproles was signed, I was kind of hopeful. I was like, well, maybe he'll be the change of pace back, but then he'll also be he'll get some of that receiving work, right? Because Jordan Howard's naturally not a good receiver. But now we're kind of in this scenario that's almost kind of the way Denver's starting to turn into, right? Where you got Lindsey and Freeman, and then they go add Theo Riddick. So you're going to have 3 guys working in, is what it sounds like. Now, could Sanders eventually take over the role? He could, but this is also a coach in Doug Peterson that we've seen for the last 3 years be just fine, like a Bill Belichick, saying, hey, you're good at this specific skill, you're good at this, you're good at get this, I'm going to put you 3 backs together to be my back, right? He never has just really given one guy, the load. So he was with Andy Reid and Pete Witt in Kansas City whenever Jamal Charles had some good years. So it's not like he's never been exposed to that kind of thing. But so far, hearing what we're hearing in preseason and then knowing Doug Peterson's past for the last 3 years, I'm really with Andy. I think it's just starting to get overinflated. I was in a draft 2 days ago. He went in the 3rd round. I'm just like, holy. And that was off of like a jump cut from like somebody posted on Twitter last week. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Miles Sanders made this jump cut. And he's really good at that. He made this jump cut to the outside in their scrimmage that they did at the link. And what's funny is when you watch it, he totally made the wrong read, just like he did in college. He should have kept that inside. There was outside leverage, and he ran into the player and got lucky and basically was able to just kind of keep his balance, and he ran it in for a touchdown. And everybody thought it was the greatest thing ever. But you guys know how that goes. You go into the film room, and the coach is like, dude, you're supposed to hit the C gap. You're supposed to hit the B gap right here. And here you are trying to swing it wide every time, and you're jumping past the hole. So anyway, I think it's just a situation right now, just like Andy said. I think it's getting overinflated. It was the opposite like 2 weeks ago. It was settling down. I got him one time in the 8th round, which I was fine with. Just stash him, put him away, save him for later. Maybe Jordan Howard gets hurt. He's behind a great offensive line and a great offense. I would love that, but now it's probably gonna become cost prohibitive.
And I'm gonna jump in here. Look, I get all the hype. I do. I think the kid is gonna be a good running back at some point, but I am worried about ball control. And while you say it is correctable, sometimes it takes a little while for that to be corrected. His coach even said it. He went on to praise Sanders on how good he looks, but he has to worry about his ball control. That's how he ended it. And, while everybody reports the good thing, nobody reports the bad thing. The fact is he definitely has that issue. He also has the issue of wanting to dance around behind the line too much sometimes, like Dwain was talking about. So there's definitely some concerns for me. And then when I look at it from the other side of the field with Jordan Howard, sure, he's not a pass-catching back. I get it. But he's playing behind an elite offensive line. He's going to get most of the goal line work. And I see him, easily coming out of this with 10 touchdowns, maybe more. The fact of the matter is they have him on a 1-year contract, and they're just going to run him. They're going to run him. They're going to run him and run him some more because they have nothing long-term invested in him. So why not? Put him out there on the field, let him run him out there, and then ship him off next year, hand the reins over to Miles Sanders and whoever else you bring in. So when I look at all of these things combined, I get it that Sanders is the guy that everybody wants, but I'm with Andy in the fact that I love the fact that Sanders is getting pushed up so much because Howard is getting pushed down. And I'd much rather have the value in Howard, who I think is going to score a ton of touchdowns in this offense. You're listening to FF Champs After Dark, of course, with Andy Singleton, our new co-host, Dwain McFarland, and I am, of course, Jim Day. We're going to keep going here, and the next one is one I've been looking forward to talking to, but we're running out of time, so we're going to have to make this quick. And that's Dante Pettis in San Francisco. Everybody's talking him up, how great he is, how good he is, and what he's going to do this year. Yet, he is having a terrible camp. He's dropping balls left and right. They're not really happy with him right now. Are we possibly looking at a second-year slump? And I'm going to turn it over to you this time, Dwain. What's your thoughts on Dante Pettis? And let's keep it to less than a 50-minute soliloquy.
Yeah, with Pettis, I'm really not worried. And the reason why is because, just going back and watching everything from last year and then what translated from his film in college, it's still all the same thing. The guy's always open. If you look at his separation on Next Gen for guys that didn't line up in the slot at least 50% of the time, he was second in the league facing top corners. He did this to Xavier Rhodes. He did this to Patrick Peterson. So, I mean, he turns people around. Now, is he having a rough camp because he's having some drops? Yes, but I haven't been able to see them, so we don't know. I mean, is it technical in nature? Is it focus? But, drops are not something that were a problem for him in college. It's not something that was a big problem for him last year. So when I hear it definitely had my attention when I heard, hey, he's having a rough camp. But as soon as I saw that it was really more about drops and not, other things, it really kind of put me at ease. So I'm still excited about Pettis. I think, if you can get him in the 6th or 7th round, typically, you can get him in the 7th round of drafts. Every once in a while, he'll slide into the 8th. I still feel really good about that. I mean, I think he is the number 2 behind Kittle, in the offense, just because he is so good at getting open.
Every year, wind up buying into somebody. I've fallen to the hype, and with Pettis, it was for one simple reason: it was the weight gain. I loved him coming out of Washington. This kid was a dynamic, and I mean like world-class punt returner. Of course, his father was Gary Pettis, Major League Baseball player. I mean, this is an athlete through and through. But my scouting report on him coming out of college was a world-class wide receiver 2 at the next level that would have some moments as a wide receiver 1, but not the guy that's going to be your stud. The guy that's going to be the wide receiver 2 everybody wants, that's going to run the routes and draw attention and make defenses be honest. He got off to a great start in the rookie year, surprising start, I think, to everybody. I don't think anybody expected Pettis to do what he did last year, and a lot of that had to do with opportunity. You factor in Jimmy G wasn't there. He's coming back, and everybody thinks his world's better than Mullins and Beathard and whoever else you wanted to throw out in San Francisco. I think the hype was a little bit too much for Pettis. You said the 2 behind Kittle. I think he's the 2 as far as the wide receiver core goes, but they don't have a true 1. So until that time comes, fine, he could play that role. I think that he projects better as a wide receiver 2. But again, it goes back to the weight gain. He was a slender guy. He wasn't a big dude. And what was it, 15, 20 pounds of muscle he added? So that was what was really pushing me to buy into this hype of, hey, this is a guy on a breakout. Am I worried about him? No, I'm not worried about him. He's a good football player. So I'm not worried about the camp. I just worry that he's not necessarily what people want to think he is.
Well, okay, I'm going to jump in here because I actually have a totally different concept of what might be happening here. And Dwain and I actually talked about this off air during the week when we were talking about some other things. And, one of the things that really isn't being taken into account is that he did all his damage last year with Nick Mullins throwing him the ball. Now, all of a sudden, he's got Jimmy Garoppolo throwing him the ball. And one thing that most people don't take into consideration is, different quarterbacks throw the ball differently. They come at receivers in different ways. A lot of times it's, usually the right guy throwing righty versus a guy throwing lefty. Totally different how the ball comes at you, how it spins, all of that. But sometimes even between, the same side, if they're both righties, it really depends on how they let the ball fly. And I think it could very well be that this is just an adjustment period for Pettis learning how to receive Garoppolo's thrown ball. And it's just a theory. It's really nothing more than that. But what I'm really coming down to is I'm not really worried about Pettis as much as, some might be because of the news out of camp. But at the same time, I also think he's going a little earlier than I want to invest in him for, because let's face it, Garoppolo, I'm worried about playing a full season anyway. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. And I know they're going to throw a lot to the backs and, of course, Kittle. So I just think he's going off the board a little too early for my liking. There's other wide receivers in that range that I take a chance on. If he dropped a little bit further down, I'd feel more comfortable. Because I agree with Dwain in the fact that the kid is very good getting in and out of his breaks, learning to create separation, giving that quarterback a shot to get the ball to him. And he's great at that. But he needs to be able to work with Garoppolo a little bit more, and I think that'll transition into fine. I just don't think I like him that early.
No, and you make a very valid point by saying that, because it definitely is differences in different quarterbacks. But it's crazy to me. I mean, I'm pulling up his page again right now just because I kind of have to smack myself when I think of how everybody's projecting Pettis. He had 27 receptions last year. I know he was a rookie. I know he was a wide receiver. I know he had Mullins, all that kind of stuff. I know he had, what was it, the four weeks that he carried everybody into playoffs. He peaked at the right time for fantasy football and gained national attention because of it. And he had 4 phenomenal weeks. But let's be realistic. He had 45 targets over the entire season. So to just automatically assume this is, a 100 reception, 1,000-yard, 10 TD kind of guy, let's pump the brakes a little.
Well, hey, look, the same could be said for DJ Moore.
I'm not saying it about DJ Moore, though, or Curtis Samuel for that matter.
Say what? You're not, or you are?
I'm not. I'm not about either of those guys.
So you're not saying they're going to be good, or you're not saying they're going to be bad? I'm kind of confused.
No, I think they're fine. I don't think they're going to be that top end guy. I think they'd be closer to high end wide receiver 3, low end wide receiver 2 types than low wide receiver 1, high wide receiver 2.
Well, I've seen, and the reason I bring up DJ Moore is because I've been seeing him go in the 4th round. And to me, that's ludicrous. I'm not ready to believe he's ready to do that yet. I mean, he did take a nice step last year as a rookie. What do you have? Like almost 800 yards receiving, but he only had the 2 touchdowns. Hopefully that would change. But in the 4th round, I can't invest in him that early. Just can't. I'd much rather take Samuel, the other guy you mentioned, 5 rounds later. Although now your word out of the camp is that Samuel has looked so good this preseason, to the point that some beat writers are wondering if he's going to end up being the number 1 option there, because he is having such a great preseason. So, look, I'd much rather take the later guy. We always talk about this. When you're talking about 2 guys on the same team, a lot of times the better value is the guy you can get late. In this case, to me, I've been saying it all preseason. I'm going to continue saying I think Samuel is the much better value where you can get him, usually in the 8th or 9th round.
Yeah, if Greg Olson's healthy, he's going to cut in significantly to both Moore and Samuel.
Man, I don't want anything to do with Greg Olson. Look, man, one of the best tight ends in history of the league. I get it. And I'm not down on the guy. There's no way I want to invest anything in him with that foot after the last couple of years.
I'm not talking about investing in him. I'm saying if he's healthy, he's going to affect the totals of these other 2 receivers we're talking about.
Yeah, I just don't know if I see him being healthy. Dwayne, any last thoughts here? And then we're going to have one more topic, and then we're going to get the heck out of here.
No, I'm good. I think, everything you guys we're saying there, it's all valid. I'm obviously higher on DJ Moore than you guys are. I don't have him, projected for, huge numbers. I just, a lot of it's about, where is the potential upside. So when I get to a tier where I've got him and Calvin Ridley, and some other guys that I'm going
to cut to the chase, put you on the spot right now. What round do you take?
I was just going to ask you. I
take DJ Moore in the 5th round. And here's why. Because I'm taking him against guys like Calvin Ridley, who he's got an alpha. He's got Julio Jones I've got to deal with. With DJ Moore, I've got Curtis Samuel. Could Curtis Samuel end up beating him out? Yeah, he could. But I think when I look at the application on the field of the way those 2 guys work, DJ Moore has 3 areas out of 5 that I really care about in the bank. Curtis Samuel has like 1, and he is improving, and he was not a refined product coming out of Ohio State. So, he's learned a lot about his game, and I'm excited about Curtis Samuel. But when I look at it and I think about how they're going to deploy him, how the offense is going to work, he's going to be the intermediate and short receiving guy. He's probably going to see the most targets on the team. If I have to think of a young guy that has an upside to get to 25% target share out of the group that's going there, besides Chris Godwin, which you have to take him like almost heck now after tonight, his freaking, ADP is going to be even where it's going to be, I saw him go in the 3rd the other day. Yeah, he's already been going in the 4th. So Chris Godwin, I like the most, out of those guys going in that range. But DJ Moore, when I start comparing him to the guys that are going around him, I see a scenario where, I could get more out of him. Coming back in the next round.
I can't see it.
Listen, I know you wanted to end here, so I don't want to go on to another tangent. Maybe we'll save this for next week. But I got to stick up for my boy Calvin Ridley here. You said that he's got to deal with an alpha. We could be seeing the changing of the guard. And it could be, and it's one a guy to another, so I think Julio will be comfortable with that. But we've also seen this offense with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones in it be able to sustain 2 high-level fantasy wide receiver 1 conversation pieces. Obviously, you had Roddy White, tail end of his prime, handing over and changing the guard to Julio Jones. We might be seeing the same thing. Calvin Ridley, I think, is going to score more touchdowns than DJ Moore, which to me is a big swing in his favor, a big, determining factor or tiebreaker, if you will. So I got to defend Ridley. And the last thing I'm going to say about Ridley, and I point this anytime I talk about the Ridley brothers, their unique relationship is so special, and they critique each other. They used to get together every Sunday or Monday. Last year, they're both in the state of Georgia. They'd get together and they'd go over each other's game film and break it down and critique each other. You don't have that kind of luxury. All these other guys don't necessarily have that kind of luxury, and they have that. It's an added bonus. It's like having an in-home
he likes the family bond.
Hey, man, listen. I'm all for the family bond, but that is silly. If you're putting him over DJ Moore because of that, I agree with you on the touchdowns, man, dude. I love Calvin Ridley, so it's not like I've drafted Calvin Ridley as well. It's just if I got to choose between the two guys, I see a clearer path for DJ. I don't even disagree that that offense could support two guys in Atlanta. If I play odds, I play high stakes. I win a boatload of money. And I play odds. So whenever I'm playing this game, I'm going to put my bet on the better odds, and it's just going to be DJ Moore. Now, Calvin Ridley's three picks later. I'm excited.
I can't buy into that.
I can't either.
Not only because of the huge leap he's going to have to take to get there. Not only that, but man, Cam Newton scares me. He scares me a little bit. The whole fact of the matter that they have to change his throwing motion scares me to hell. Because,
but.
Wait. You always yell at me that I don't let you finish. Let me finish. That scares me. Look, he's going to get in the middle of the game in the heat of action, and that new throwing motion is going to go right out the window. He's going to go back to the way he's been doing it all his freaking life in the middle of a hot action. When he's out there running around trying to save his own ass, he's going to go back to throwing the ball the way he's always thrown it, and that's just going to generate all that torque on the shoulder that they're worried about. And that's just there's something there that's just bothering me.
But if Cam goes down, we're gonna get to see Nando DeFino as the starting quarterback for Carolina. He's Will Greer's doppelganger.
Oh, is he? Oh, okay. I was trying to figure out where the hell you were going.
You gotta look at Nando and Will Greer side by side. They are twins.
I don't know. It's just look. Cam's always been a great quarterback. He's always been at the top of the heap. I get that, and it may continue. But that whole process of changing a throwing motion at this late stage in a guy's career, to me, that's just scary because that's hard to do. It is absolutely hard to do. Change something you've been doing all your life to something new at this stage is hard to do. And that's where we're going to end the show, folks. I'm going to turn it over to Andy. Andy, tell everybody what you got going on.
How long I got?
You got about 2 seconds. Okay, you're done. Okay, Dwayne, how about you? No, go ahead.
I got a lot going on. As you know, I have my annual Scott Fishbowl ripoff, which is in its 5th year. So I got Draft with Giants 5 coming at you, 240 teams in the field. But beyond that, bigger than that, we just hit a week with the relaunch of my website, expandtheboxscore.com. So if you're looking for advanced stats for college football, for the NFL, college basketball, NBA, Major League Baseball, minor league baseball, we have everything. We've also added a content team, so podcasts, articles, videos, and seriously, the most in-depth stats you can find anywhere for a peasant's price. Go check it out. Expand the box score.
And they have great pictures of naked grandmas. Go check them out.
That's a premium package.
Dwayne, tell everybody what you got going on.
Yeah, just put out about, I guess, like 6 or 8 articles just in the last few weeks at Football Guys. Folks can find them there. I do an article known as the Projection Spectrum. It's where I take a look at really what is the true range of outcomes for a player and what is the key to unlocking it. So I've done Kerryon Johnson, Aaron Jones, Odell Beckham Jr. I've also done several breakdowns on the coaching changes, so they can find my work at Football Guys. And then also at the RSP, there's several things there that you can actually go to see for free at the RSP. And then if you are an RSP subscriber, I usually do a couple of write-ups on a few different players that are either rookies or in their second year for Matt. So I did Darrell Henderson, last month. And then this time coming around, I think I'm actually going to get to N'Keal Harry. And then I'm actually going to be doing, I'm going to be picking another running back. It'll probably end up being Miles Sanders just because of all this ADP love. So that'll be coming out here in the next week or so.
I'd love to get your take on Devin Singletary, but maybe we'll talk about that next week. Okay,
Yeah.
folks.
Will I be here next week? Because hearing what you've just added with Dwayne, I'm starting to fear for my own safety on this show.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Man, this guy's like a legend already.
Well, that's why I asked him to join us, because I tell you what, I have become a big fan. The man knows what he's talking about. And the great thing, and I tell him this all the time, so the one thing I really love about what he does is that he's a numbers guy, but he can break it down in a way that non-numbers people can understand. And there's not many numbers people who can do that. So I really love that about Dwayne. So that was the reason I went after him and got him on the show, because I know he can do that, and he'll educate all of us. So I'm looking forward to it. I am Jim Day, of course. You can find me on Twitter at FantasyTaz. Every Monday through Friday, I am on the FNTSY Sports Network and the Fantasy Football Frenzy from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern. Wednesday night, I have the WTF podcast with Tony Sincata, Mike Blewett. Of course, we have the Champs here on Friday night. Sunday mornings, we will have a Champs podcast starting up real soon with me and Bill Enright. So, lots of things going on. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, Full-Time Fantasy is becoming the fantasy arm of Sports Illustrated. So many more things ahead. And I'm really looking forward to where we can take this. And this little ragtag bunch of podcasts we put together could be something really big really soon. So I'm really looking forward to that. Folks, we are out. Make sure you check out playffwc.com for all your fantasy football needs. You go there, play any kind of league you want, best ball, super flex, dynasty, including the big games. Get in the online championship, get in the world championship. There's lots of great things, so go make sure you check it out. This has been the FF Champs After Dark, and we are out. Everybody have a great weekend.